In this video, we're going to look at how to prepare a mesh for texturing with InstaLOD by automatically unwrapping its UVs with multiple material sections, also known as texture sets, so that we can distribute our UV shells across multiple UV tiles to get better texel density. So here we are in InstaLOD Studio, and you can see the mesh that I'd like to unwrap and prepare for texturing. Now, before we start processing this in InstaLOD, I want to show you why this is important, why we're doing it this way when we texture it using InstaMAT. So I'm just going to hop over to InstaMAT. All right, so you can see here that I've already started texturing this model. And so what you'll notice here is that I've set the texturing resolution here to 2K. And if I zoom in here, you can see we're getting lots of pixelation with our textures. Now, this is because the asset has so many UV shells packed onto one tile, and a resolution of 2K for a single set of textures just isn't high enough to remove that pixelation. In other words, the asset doesn't have the right texel density for the textures to appear clearly up close. So even if I bump this up to 4K, you can see that even at 4K, we can still see some of that pixelation. So what I'd like to show you is how we can reconfigure this asset to utilize multiple material sections that can use lower resolution textures, but get even better visual quality. So I've set this back to 2K, and let's head back over to InstaLOD. All right, so we're back here in InstaLOD, and so I want to tell you a little bit about how I set up this mesh. So you can see I've got three groups here. I've got what I've named Material 1. That is going to be this case outside here. Then we've got Material 2, where I've got some panels and things. And then I've got Material 3, which is going to be all the small pieces here, like the vent and the buttons and these corners and the feet and things like that. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to unwrap this mesh and assign materials to each of these sections and unwrap each of these sections individually so that, all of the case here takes up one UV tile, and the same for this section here. If I go ahead and press Command or Control F to engage the filter, you can see I just have these large panels and things here. I want these to take up an entire UV tile as well. And then finally, I just want all of my small pieces to be packed into its own 0 to 1 UV tile. So let's take a look at how we can do this. So we're going to start off here with the case, and I'm going to go over to the material editor panel here, and I'm just going to change this default material to be Material 1. And so what I can do here is I can select what I want to be assigned this material, the geometry here in the outliner. In this case, it's just the case. And so I can go ahead and right click and say Assign Material to Selection. So now Material 1 is only assigned to this case. Now, what else do I want to do? Now I want to take this Material 2. Again, that is just going to be these front panels and these kind of pipes around the sides. I'm going to add another material, call it Material 2. And again, I'm going to assign it to this as well. Then finally, I'll do the same thing for all of my accessories and smaller pieces with Material 3. Again, right-click and assign material to selection. So what do we have here? We have Material 1, that's this material section here. That's going to be unwrapped just for the case. Then again, we have Material 2 assigned to this geometry here. And then finally, Material 3 for the accessories and things like that. So now let's unwrap the UVs of each of these different materials. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and select Material 1, and I'm going to enable that filter again. That could also be Command or Control F to get that. And I'm going to make sure that I have the UV unwrap mesh operation selected. Now, before we do anything, I'm quickly going to go over to the profile settings, and I'm going to tick this box here which says append name as suffix. So I'm going to make sure this is disabled. So by default, you can see it's enabled. And if we disable it here, you can see the arrow appears, and it's not going to, what it's going to do is if it was enabled, it's going to apply the word default to all of the meshes that the mesh operation affects. So this would be case underscore default, front panel underscore default. And I don't want to change the names of the objects in the scene. So I'm just going to disable append name as suffix here so that we keep the names exactly the same. So next up, now that I have UV Unwrap enabled as the mesh operation that I'm going to use, I want to make sure that in my unwrap strategy, I have hard surface axial enabled. And that's because due to the nature of this mesh, it's a hard surface mesh. It's got these big flat planes and things like that. It's really a hard surface object. It's going to give me a better unwrap and projection when I create the UVs this way. So hard surface axial is what I'm going to use. But if you have a more organic, kind of object that you want to unwrap, you can use the organic, or you can use the auto option here as well. So making sure that I do have that filter enabled, I've got UV Unwrap selected and hard surface axial applied. Let's go ahead and hit start. So it says mesh filtering is enabled. It's only going to process the filtered objects that I have here, the ones that I have selected in the scene. So I'll hit proceed, and there we go. We've now unwrapped this first object. So if I go and bring up the UV viewer here, I'll hit Command or Control U. You can see we have these nice big unwrapped shells here in this 0 to 1 space for this material 1. Now let's go ahead and do the same thing for material 2. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit start. I've got that filtering enabled, and let's proceed. And so there we go. Again, if I bring back my UVs, you can see again, nice big shells taking up this 0 to 1 space for my second material, material 2. And now finally, let's do the same thing for material 3. And now if I go over to material 3, you can see we have this really nice automatic UV unwrapping of all the small pieces packed really nicely here into this 0 to 1 tile for my third material. So again, I'll just disable the filter here, and now you can see what we've done here. We've got our 3 different unwraps for our 3 different materials, and this is now set up and ready to go for texturing in InstaMAT using the multi-material unified asset texturing project workflow. So I'm just going to go ahead and go to the File menu and then choose to export the scene, and let's bring it into InstaMAT. All right, so we're back here in InstaMAT, and I'm just going to go ahead and drop in my FBX that I just exported from InstaLOD into the package here. So you can now see under Meshes, I have my multi-material unwrapped FBX. So let's go ahead and quickly create an asset texturing project here. Let's call this AMP multi-material unified. And it's very important here, we change the type to multi-material unified here. It's going to take advantage of all the stuff that we've just done. So let's pick the mesh, and this isn't an InstaMAT tutorial, but let's go ahead and quickly do this. So I'll choose the mesh that I just added, and we're going to quickly go ahead and bake some mesh maps while we're at it. So let's go ahead and create the project. And let's just quickly bake those mesh maps for this scene. So I'll just go ahead and use the GPU, set it to something like 2K, and quickly bake these. All right, so you can see we're done here, and I'm just going to quickly go ahead and enable the ambient occlusion channel as well, so we can see that in the viewport. So what's really nice about InstaMAT is now I don't need to go ahead and retexture this project. I can actually take everything from my original project here, the one with a single tile, and I'll just go ahead and drag and drop it into the layer stack of this project, and it's just going to completely texture the asset for me. This is such a huge benefit from InstaMAT. It's pretty amazing that we can do this, where I've got all of my masks and my layers and all of the painting and everything that I could do here, and it's just applied everything automatically. And look at this, we're at 2K now, and I can see much more clear detail, with the meshing here on the front, all the decals for the different knobs and things, and you can see this massive texture here, this leather texture across the casing, and looks, really clean, all at 2K as well. So if we actually go back to the original one here with one tile, you can see the difference, right? So it's going to go ahead and retexture this. This is the, everything packed into one singular tile at 2K, and you can see, just how pixelated it is because our texel density isn't that great. So if we unwrap our model like this, where we have a few different material sections, we can distribute those tiles across, we can distribute those shells across those UV tiles and get much higher quality, which is great for things like this, especially if you're doing something like offline renders or viewing something up really close. So that is a brief look at how we could set up a model for texturing inside of InstaLOD Studio to take advantage of the multi-material unified workflow inside of InstaMAT. If you enjoyed this video, drop us a comment below and don't forget to subscribe. For the latest news about InstaLOD, please visit our website, follow us on X, join us on Discord, or sign up for the Abstract community. You can find all the links in the video description below. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.